Nick.
Holy, old mustache Emery.
Yeah,
Wow, go away for a week and come back a changed man.
yeah, I lost a bet.
Was it rated R 18 plus rating on this podcast?
Oh man, that's good. Welcome back to another episode, everybody. My name's Emery Wolf. Joining me is Nick Lamb, and this is just two camera guys. I think that's a great way to open it. Let's just
I
roll
think
with
so
that.
too. Yeah, just give me some permission to record and we'll be good.
um, what do you want to talk about today, Nick?
Uh, Canon C400. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen some stuff. I'm not surprised you want to talk about it.
It is basically the camera that I want to get.
Do you think you're going to do it?
Well, we should talk about it because I've did some kind of back of the napkin figures on it.
Okay.
And for
Do
so the
I'm
camera,
going to cut you off here first, Nick.
okay.
Real quick. It's been a minute since we've done one of
It's
these.
been a little bit. Can
What
you get me some recording permissions here? I keep hitting record and it's not letting me.
Absolutely. What have you been up to lately
So when was our last episode?
before summer?
Before summer.
Yeah.
All right. Um, been an interesting summer, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, for you.
Uh, yeah. Yeah, well, for everybody, but for me too.
Yeah. Not exactly ideal for you. Did you guys do a holiday though in between?
No. So, well, basically, started the summer off. I'm start this episode out on a we'll move go up from here. But basically, my dad passed away this summer and lost a good friend this summer as well. So it's been a summer, I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
You did a video tribute for your dad, right?
Yes. Yeah. Did I tell you about that at all?
A little bit.
So basically, what I did was um just maybe 2 months or so before he passed away. It was just like, let's go. I obviously didn't know he was going to pass away in 2 months, but was just thinking we should get a family history where just kind of figure out, how his childhood was. And I did my mom's too, so I basically did their childhood up until the point when they got married, and then they kind of sat down together and told their story, where we kind of hit on some of the, ups and downs of life over the years. But it was great because then at the funeral, I essentially took three or four of his best stories that he always liked to tell and incorporated those into the eulogy and into the whole production, which um, Emery, I'll tell you this. If you haven't been a part of a funeral in the behind the scenes way, it's like putting on a production. It's like you got to kind of figure out when people are speaking, what's going to happen, all the media. Um, yeah, in the media room, the person was like, "Oh my goodness, I've never had somebody that knew this much about all the technology behind here."
Yeah. And any event, I think, is sort of like that period. Whether it's like a work event or something. So if people are in like event stuff, they can actually probably handle like video production stuff as well.
Yeah, it's actually true. Any kind of conference or all of that stuff, you're essentially communicating with the behind the scenes video people,
Yeah.
which because yeah, we do live stuff all the time. So it's not a big deal for us, but I imagine some people would probably don't need to be quite as worried about it as they are. Once you've done a couple of them, they're all the same, basically. It's
Yeah.
just the planning part.
Do you have a favorite story of your dad you can share, or maybe one of his highlights that was in your video?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Um, my honestly, so my favorite makes me look bad, but that's a good one to go with. Where So he would, the way that uh he would always tell the story with some dramatic effect, but I'll do my best. Where, so I grew up on a farm, and it was in the middle of harvest, or starting to approach harvest, and everything gets quite busy at the farm. But for some reason, we must have been working in a field right by the house, because we'd stopped in the house for supper, and my dad said, "Go fuel up the fuel tank." And we've got uh the way we had it set up, we've got those big fuel tanks at the farm. And then in the back of the truck, we had those, that slip tank. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it wasn't even, it was, the fuel tank was so big that it had to be pulled by the truck. So it was a big tank that didn't even fit in the back of the truck. It was pulled by the truck. So uh, I just swung around. We had two stations. We had a diesel fueling station and a gas fueling station, complete opposite sides of the yard. So you couldn't really get it mixed up. Like at the pump, sometimes you could get, you always hear a story. People put gas in their car or whatever, but you couldn't make that mistake at the farm. So we fueled it up. I got her filling up over supper, and we came out, and my dad was like, "What's going on? I told you to fuel up the the tank." And I was like, "No, and it's filling up." And you can see the diesel from once you walk out of the house, but you couldn't see the gas. It was kind of back around by the Quonset. And it was one of those moments where it was like, oh no. And this is the mid harvest. And I remember my dad was just like, we ran over there, pulled it out, and like, well, I don't know what to do. And I have to remember this was mid 90s, early 90s. So my dad was just like, well, we got to get the fuels, because I'd mixed gas with diesel. So I'd wasted like hundreds and hundreds of gallons of fuel. And my dad literally just pulled the plug. Like he took it out to place in the yard and just pulled the plug and just started letting all the gas and diesel out. And then I was like, well, at a certain point, I saw it all draining down, and it was draining to the slough where I'd like kind of took a liking to these little ducks that had been swimming around. I saw them kind of, there was ducks, but then they had these little baby ducks. And then I remember going to my dad, well, what about the ducks that have been living in the slough there, like the little pond all summer? What's going to happen to them? Right. And I was like, well, I don't know. I guess, they'll probably die. And I must have made a plea of like, no, we can't kill the ducks, because so once the tank had drained, might have pulled it away and was like, well, I'll just light it on fire and get rid of the fuel, and it won't make it down to the pond. And it was, I've tried, I kid you not, it would have been a 30-foot wide by 30-foot wall of flame. And like, if you've ever seen gas and diesel burn, it's like black smoke. It looks like those videos from
Yeah.
Kuwait or whatever. You know, when you saw those where they'd bomb the oil rigs and it would
Yep.
go up in flames. And then, uh, uh, so like we literally had neighbors who aren't, this is not like an acreage neighbor where it's like your neighbor next door. This
Uh,
is neighbors like 5 kilometers away driving up with their,
Thinking the farm's burning down.
with their water tanks. So like they'd loaded up their water tanks, or were ready to put out this fire. And and then so all of this burnt. And when my dad tells my story to my uncle, they had went in on this discer together. So they'd bought this discer, and half of it burnt in the fire. And my dad always says, well, Uncle Dave, looks like your half of the discer burnt. My half turned out to be fine. But
Huh.
then but then after this had all happened, he said, well, I hope you learned your lesson, Nick. And I said, yeah, I did. And he goes, well, what lesson did you learn? I go, well, if you do something dumb, I'll do some. If I do something dumb, you'll do something dumber. and, and that was his favorite story to tell. Would tell it all the time.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. And you said everything went well, like at the funeral itself, and the video was a hit. And,
It did. It did. It was good. It was cool to see the person that's not there anymore kind of get the final word.
yeah.
But
And
yeah,
honestly,
everybody liked
too,
it.
like just what a keepsake for yourself and for your
Yeah.
daughter, honestly, too, right? As she gets older, so she always has a thing for Grandpa there as well. So,
Yeah. No, great
uh,
for us and some of his buddies that hadn't seen him in a couple of years. When you go to a funeral if you haven't seen somebody in a little while, but then this way they kind of got to see him again and tell the stories one last time. So yeah, it worked out great. Thought it was cool and something that honestly I want to try to do more of those kind of shoots. It's
yeah.
it's cool.
Um, your buddy passed away too. A bit of a shock there, or was it?
And well, I know, but like aggressive cancer, so like a little over a year. But um
But not an old guy though either. Like,
no, no, no. So yeah.
and you had to do a bunch of stuff with that as well.
Yeah, did stuff with that. So we put together the eulogy and stuff. So he was from South Africa. So it was a bunch of his friends, a mixture between his friends from South Africa that couldn't make it and then here. So we got to read a bunch we kind of took all the stories and assembled them in some kind of order that we thought made sense and read. So we had a good outlook of people from all over and stuff. But yeah, yeah, that's hard. Yeah, anybody that's lost a friend will know how hard
Yeah.
that is.
I talked to you earlier a bit about it, but you had kind of, I thought, was like a good outlook. At least I think a good outlook. I think for
Yeah, I don't
everybody,
know.
these things are different, but like a good outlook on it. And you kind of you kept your head down, buried yourself in work, and decided to try and stay positive about everything. What kind of led you to that?
So, well, two, I I wasn't positive the whole time, but I've been trying my best to when a situation comes up, stay like literally relentlessly positive over it. Where, um, yeah, mainly because, well, so there's a couple different things, but I I'm it's not all the time, but what I'm more speaking to is of when a situation comes up that I can't control. I need to try to find the positive side and stay on that positive side because yeah, there's a lot of different rabbit holes you can go down in a situation like this, and there's too what this is so weird, but like as we get older, there's too many people counting on us.
Yeah,
And so
that's a
I
lot
feel
of
like I don't
pressure to
really have a
put on
choice.
yourself, though, too, right?
Well, it is, but it's not.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of the. So I need to send you this one video. It was really cool where I'm going to do a bad job explaining it, but it basically said that, like, you go through like the different stages of life where, like, things kind of are can be difficult somewhat in your teenage years and your 20s. It's like you're you're really kind of just thinking about yourself and you're cruising through, and then in your 30s you start kind of stacking up responsibilities and you're realizing crap, life's not quite as easy as it was or I thought it was going to be in my 20s. And then as you get in your 30s and 40s, like the kids and all of that, everything kind of really starts stacking up and gets increasingly more difficult. But then uh, the guy was saying that through the studies, they were figuring out like who's the happiest. And it's actually the older people. And he was going, well, they would have like their health's failing and they would have more reasons to be unhappy. But at a certain point, I guess it flips and you start realizing that like life is finite. It doesn't, you're not here forever, and that you need to literally take time to smell the roses or pay attention to even just like a sunset and all that kind of stuff. And at a certain point, it goes from all of these huge responsibilities stacking up to it starts getting better and better and better, which was it was a really encouraging video and outlook to look at things that as you get older, like happiness actually increases because your ability to understand it increases.
Yeah. How come we get grumpier as we get older, though? We're like grumpy old men. Or at least
You
I
know
am.
what? That's an interesting thing. You know what I bet you it is that because men's life expectancy is less. So what they're actually doing is they're just all of these studies are just taking into account women that are.
Yeah. Um, actually, this kind of brings up like another point. Like the Ted Lasso of it, right? Like I think being positive is probably always the better way to go, but I also think I even hate that I'm about to say this, but it depends on like the type of person. So like myself, when I go through situations, like I'm a big music person,
Mm.
and like aggressive screaming music is what
Oh,
helps
really?
release a lot of that. Yeah, right. Like, man, going through breakups, like just anger, hate songs, love them. um, but again,
With a
to what
mustache like that, I should have expected it.
um the other thing though with that too, I think the younger you are, the faster you can learn to stay positive or as positive as you can through any of life situations, the better. I think just it's a better outlook, it's a better perspective, it's a better way to go for your own health and your time on this earth. It is limited.
Hmm. Yeah, and like I there's no cheating the stages of um grief, and they'll come, but it's like, yeah, that's just what I decided. Who knows whether I'm right or not? Stay
Yeah,
positive.
I think it's a great approach. Gonna drag this down again just because it made me think of another thing. I read a thing recently about the relationship between being creative and depression.
Oh, interesting.
Um, you could basically, I actually did it while we were talking, just literally Googled creativity and depression. There's articles galore out of it and tons of stuff on it, but there seems to be like an actual
Hmm.
physical brain link that makes this kind of true. So essentially, the more uh, I think it works both ways. Like the more depressed you are, that leads to creativity. Personally, I actually kind of feel like I've gone through that, or at least the more pissed off I was at something, the better my creativity was. Like just effort in and narrowed in on something really helped. Sounds weird to say, being pissed off help, but and then I think it also works the other way. Like when you are using the part of your brain for creativity, that actually makes you a more depressed person. And reading this stuff was actually like the first time. Again, I said I'm a music person. Like it hurts my soul. The death of Chris Cornell. Um, what that man was to like music. I think he was like everything and how he went out. But it's like after reading that, it's like, oh, I could see that. And, I could see Cornell putting that amount of pressure on himself to be creative all the time. And whether you think it's creative or not, he's still probably using that physical aspect of his brain that is linked. Anyways, it's actually an interesting thing. I think if you are a creative person, it's actually worth reading up on at some point in time. Like I said, kind of interesting. I think if you just find like, what do you call it? The science of the brain.
Hmm.
Shows how smart the film guy is, right?
Psychology.
Yeah, whatever it is. Anyways, it shows those kind of links, and I think that stuff's kind of interesting.
So
Um,
it's interesting you said that. So do you know who John Green is?
no.
Anyways, so he's author and very much creative person. And he kind of went through like depression and all that stuff. But now on the other side, like he more speaks against that attitude in a way of saying that like he can still be creative and not be depressed. and still take care of himself mentally and perform great work.
Yeah.
So, um,
I think that's a unbelievable point. Um, I'm trying, honestly, I feel like you and I actually probably do that naturally as well, though, right? Like,
mm,
why do you keep working Pats games? Is
why?
it fulfilling your creative juice, or is it just something for fun and to get something out of the way, right?
Yeah, for me, it's a mix.
Yeah,
So there's the creative to a certain point, but it's that paying attention for 2 to 3 hours straight, where it's like intense focus, and then it's going to be done. I love that, so I like that. And then hanging out in the room after with all of the like all your buddies, the
yeah.
social side. Yeah, that's great too.
The other thing that I would say is actually like important to that, and it's something we've talked about before, like have other interests other than like you can't be creative all the time. And I actually think this is probably part of, you know, we never talked about it like this, that it's depression and it's linked to the same part of the brain. But like I actually think intuitively we probably knew that. And like both of us have interests in other things.
Hmm.
So, and just trying to think, like, to give you an idea of other things, well, sports. I'm wearing
Yeah.
hockey jerseys all the time. I'm reading a book about like the history of the Earth, like going back to like the Big Bang, the science of how we found out all this stuff. I find it fascinating. Like, so just keeping up on those sort of things. Is there something that you think you do that keeps you from that as well?
Oh, let's see. Oh, there's a new hobby I've taken up, which we should go out sometime. Disc golf. My
I knew you
goodness,
were going
that's
to say.
fun. I've been
And you're
loving
folding
that.
too. How many
Oh
discs have you
yeah.
bought?
Oh, I've got a whole backpack full of discs. Like I probably got 15 or 20, something like that.
You
Yeah.
said a disc, I think, for every club, right? Too.
Yeah, it's basically like that. You essentially go from putter to driver to pitching wedge to 5 iron. Yeah. All the
Yeah.
same basically.
Yeah.
But so
Um,
this is what I love about it. You get the same feelings as golf. You get to go out, you're either by yourself or hanging out with your buddies.
Wait,
And
you
guess
mean
how
you
much you're
still feel like you're terrible at the sport?
well, yeah, you still feel like you're terrible, but you get that one good shot that changes everything. And then
Uh,
guess how much it costs to do a round?
I guess it'd be a lot cheaper, eh? Because it's all in the
It is
parks.
nothing. Can you hear my cat meowing?
No,
Okay, well, it's
I hope
fine
she
then.
jumps up on the table. We can hear her better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, you know what? I was gonna bore you with some stuff of my summer holidays. We went to Nova Scotia. Had a pretty epic
Yes.
trip there. We went to the 131st Bear River Cherry Festival. Was
Nice.
epic.
That's why
We
you made
spit
the trip.
Yeah, we spit some cherry pits and did not win that. And I did a grease pull. So I ran out on this greasy pole and fell into the water. That was fun. It was an
So what was the
adventure.
closest city you were at?
We basically did like the whole southern end of it. So we flew into like Halifax or
Okay.
Dartmouth or whatever it is you fly into. Drove out to Wolfville, personal favorite. Took a bunch of
Yeah,
pictures at
you have to.
Wolfville, and then like I said, continued driving down. Like we stayed in Digby right after that. We did some whale watching out
And
there.
this is
Probably had
in Halifax or Nova Scotia that you
Nova
ended up
Nova
in
Scotia.
Nova Scotia.
So Digby, Halifax is in Nova Scotia too.
Oh, Halifax is the city. I'm the
Yeah,
worst.
yeah. So, anyways, in Digby, we did this whale watching thing and probably had like the most epic whale watch where we had this one whale would just put on a show. He did like 10 or 12 like full breaches out of the water, smashing down, and
Wow.
then he come floating by the water and smashing a flipper in the water as he went by.
He
Like
escaped
just
from the zoo or something. This
yeah, right. Like
whale.
so then and then yeah, like whatever, did some Lunenburg stuff. JK Rowling had her it was like a $225 million yacht or something there. We seen that, which was kind
Wow.
of neat.
How was the
So yeah,
water?
gorgeous.
Was it warm enough to swim in the ocean or?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we didn't do a whole pile of that, but like we went in a little bit and called her a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take
Um,
lots of pictures?
I did the whale watching stuff. It'll be nice to get that off whenever I can actually get time. That seems to be my problem now. When can I actually get time to edit things? Some lighthouse shots. I think I actually have like one or two lighthouse shots that are going to be pretty choice. We It was actually when we went down for the whale watching that morning was all like fog covered. And
Oh,
so it looked good.
so did you get
Um,
magic hour type stuff with the lighthouse or
Not
just
really,
morning fog?
just like everything super flat because of the fog. And then, the fog basically erasing like backgrounds and stuff, which I think will look cool with it.
Ooh.
Um, yeah. Uh, so yeah, it was like my summer. We did some work stuff. I got you working for us for summer as well, a little
Yeah.
bit. You took some drone shots for us.
Yeah.
So that was actually, man, um, I told my boss this too, but when he first came to us with this video idea, we called it the positive message campaign. So it's all our, what are the positive things of our organization? And so we came up, I think there was like six different things, and he wanted to pump these all out, and it was very like, this is our association. This is what we do. We have provided X amount of stats, and I was like, this sucks. Like I didn't want to do it. I thought it was stupid. I hated everything about it. And then Amber, who works with me, we were talking about it, and she's like, "Well, you're doing it anyways." I'm like, "Yes, I know." And she's like, "Well, how do we make it better?" And she had some good ideas, and we started hammering it out, and it sort of became these things like, "Well, how do we make these stats real?" The one in particular that you did was, uh, over the last 10 years, the industry has lost X amount of injuries, and that amount of injuries is enough to actually fill uh, four different stadiums, which was the big one here. What is it even called here? Mosaic Stadium?
Yeah. Mosaic
Yeah.
Stadium.
What's the Moose Jaw Arena called? Just the Moose
Doesn't
Jaw
have a
Arena?
name right now.
Moose
It's
Jaw Arena. Nick Lamb's
um
Arena.
well, they're trying to get naming rights, so but
You
nobody's
should
buying it right
pony up
now.
some money, call it
Yeah.
Nick Lamb's Playhouse, and go from there. um, the
Yeah.
Arena
Like
SaskTel
Janice, I
Center,
sold the house. I took out some cash, you
but
know.
I bought an arena.
Only for
So
10 years and
yeah,
it's we've just yeah, it's a big I think it's a big investment in our future.
that's awesome. Yeah. So then the SaskTel Center in Saskatoon and the Art Hauser in PA. And what was kind of fun about it was getting you just like calling you up one day. Hey, can you take a quick shot of this place? I like don't put much effort in, just get it done. We're doing iPhone shots and
But you
calling up
didn't tell me,
Joel.
hold on. Nobody told me you were doing iPhone shots. I
Ah,
so I went down and I took out the drone and set it all up. Okay, there's not much to set up about it. But
yeah, you pushed a button.
but I had to wait for it to not be raining because it was raining that day.
Uh,
And then after Emery says, "Oh wow, oh, Nick, you did the drone. Cool. Everybody else just did iPhone shots."
well, in all fairness too, so Joel, who does the Raider games up in PA there, so I got him to do one there, and he was planning on doing a drone too, but he ran out of time, so just iPhoned it as well. But ultimately, like that kind of collaboration, how that came together. I think the final product is, good enough for that 15-second ad that we're playing all over the place now. And yeah, it kind of turned out to be, I went from a project I was disgusted about to like,
Yeah.
it's actually probably one of the better things we did and one of kind of the cooler things too, because we involved so many people in it, right?
You want to hear what job I was working on this Monday? So this is our small time stuff, but this was the greatest. So Monday, guess what I did photos for?
Oh, you were doing photos.
Yeah, I did still photos
Uh, you,
for
you, you,
a
you texted me here, so I know.
oh, did I?
I think so.
I think my text just went off. I gotta put my silence on. There
I
we
think
go.
the thing just we got 9 minutes left, but we'll have to
Okay.
start another one. Um,
So
a
get this.
musical.
No, get this.
Oh,
Golf tournament. One of the,
that's
like
fun.
how every association puts on a golf tournament.
Yeah.
So golf tournament, and then this is the beauty of it. I was stationed at a hole. So instead of me racing around, take a picture of this and that and this and that, every group that went through, boom, group photo at my hole.
Is that all you had to do was group photos too?
Yeah. Well, I took a few extra, I did a few extra photos to try to add a little bit to it, but that was my whole thing. So I got a group photos of everybody. And then it was funny because I knew like probably a third of the people going through there just from, see them through different association events and stuff. And it was like, oh, how are things going today? And it was like, oh my goodness. Whew, it's just a stressful day out on the course, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But it
Um,
was beautiful.
I had a
Edited up my
good,
photos at night, sent them off. Sweet.
you like the photo thing? Easier than video?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to offend every stills photographer out there, but it's just another world. Like maybe I'm not doing it right. Either I'm not doing it right or it's another world.
Like good or bad?
It's good. It's
Yeah.
like the variables that you have are so fewer. And I even screwed up the one. Must have been fiddling with my camera and I did how you can do the put it over a third of a stop or a half a stop or a stop. I messed with that and one of the shots was way overexposed. And guess what? Brought it
You
into
shot,
Lightroom, brought it down, and it was fine.
you shot in raw?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Why
killer.
would I not shoot in RAW? It's like 20 megabytes of picture.
Now you've pissed off Keith Hirschmiller.
Now I've also made all the photographers so mad. It's
um,
just take out all the variables, and that's just I'm the worst. I've made every stills photographer so mad, but
do you know what?
it's great.
I'm going down on that ship with you because I agree. It's part of why I do find like photography more fulfilling is because you can be very tedious about it, but if even when I'm being tedious, in an hour or two, I have like a finished product. In an hour or
Hmm.
two in video editing, I'm still like want to pull my hair out and
Yeah,
pinch
you're
things.
still coloring your files or logging the footage,
Yeah,
or worrying about your audio, or figuring out, oh, there's a bang in the background there. How can I get rid of that? Or do I got to use a different take? Or
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so many more variables. But
Um, I'm gonna say one other thing too. So my buddy Josh runs if you ever want a golf app off course, he created the app with a buddy of his and they market it. They do pretty well. It's Calgary based. Um, but when they launched the app, they had a golf tournament. I think they actually do it every year too, but I shot stuff for their golf tournament. And I think one of the funnest things I did was video for them. And I wish like we absolutely crap on GoPros a lot, but I wish I had a more modern GoPro when I did that because I only had like my GoPro 5 or whatever at the time, no screen on it. So I can't really see. It doesn't connect to my phone. So it doesn't really show me like the shot or anything,
I
right?
remember those GoPros that didn't have a screen and you just shoot and
Yeah.
go, well, probably
Well,
there.
yeah, exactly. And what I had done was I'd set it up, angled slightly up right in front of the tee. So everyone's first tee off shot, we
Ooh,
recorded
sweet.
right in front of it. Except so the first guy goes up and he's sort of doing his practice swing. He's like, am I going to hit it with the club? And I kind of watch him from the side and it's like, yeah, okay. So then I moved it back like, I want to say 3 feet. And what I should have done was just moved it back like a foot. And I was kind of like, I wish I would have nailed that a little bit better. So if I ever did it
Oh,
again, I'd do the same shot again, the GoPro out in front of it and trying to get that. And
so you're
actually,
in
even
front of the
to
person or behind the person?
in front of the ball. So the ball's coming straight at the GoPro off the thing. So if they if
Okay,
they
I
duff
see.
if they duff the shot, they're killing the GoPro.
Oh, yeah, you'd need a crappy old GoPro for that.
Whatever. They're still cheap.
Yeah. Well, $800 now.
Uh,
$1,000.
yeah. The C400, Nick,
Yes.
what do you want
Have
to
you
say?
seen anything on it?
Yep, I have
It's
actually on my screen. I've got it pulled up here. So looking at it on B&H.
so for those that are familiar with the Canon C200, it's essentially everything we'd hoped the C200 was going to be. Because I remember when all the talk of the C200 was coming out on Canon rumors, and it was the biggest thing that everybody was hoping for, and I was hoping for, was it was going to be full frame. And the C200 ended up being Super 35. The other thing that everybody, including myself, was hoping for is that you would be able to record in ProRes 10-bit or just like a 10-bit format that wasn't going to eat up a ton of footage, but you still get good results. And which they didn't get. They only got the ProRes 8-bit. The nice thing about the C200 that they did
They
get
put
was the
in
raw.
yeah, I was just gonna say they did put the raw like 12-bit in it.
Yeah, was the raw 12-bit. You do now when you shot in 60 frames on the C200, you go down to 10-bit, whereas now on the C400 you can shoot 6K. I believe it's up to 60 frames, but you can shoot 4K up to 120, and it's all in 12-bit. So you're getting everything you'd hope for there. The one thing that that camera doesn't have that I would wish that it had. Can you guess what that one thing is?
I'm guessing it's gonna be some mic input, but I thought it did have mic
Yeah,
inputs.
very close. The recording, the audio is 24-bit, not 32-bit,
Hmm.
which doesn't if it's not the same as video. Like going to 32-bit is essentially like shooting in RAW with audio. And 24-bit is shooting in JPEG for video. So 24-bit you can screw up and you don't have it very much latitude. But if you're in 32-bit, boy, you can bring that down in post and not clip. You can crank it up and not have little to no noise, like uh what do they call it? The noise floor that's introduced.
Yeah,
It just gives you so much more flexibility in 32-bit, and I don't know why they didn't put that in.
yeah. But it does ultimately look like the video camera that video people would want.
Yes. And from the reviewers that I've seen have it, they're doing this where they'll like pick it up and be like, "Oh, this is light." And then they put the lens on and they're like, "Oh, wow, so light." So
Yeah,
that's encouraging because that means you can bring back the gimbal and put it on a nice little you can put it on a gimbal and actually hold it and fly it around. Whereas mine, you need such a big gimbal to fly it around. It's just a pain. And then you're hauling this giant thing around. Don't have
yeah.
time for that.
And they're giving some more options too. So I've just got the image pulled up of it, and it's got the that 24 to 105 2.8 lens on it. I think that's what it is. So
Okay.
that Zoom one they made like last year that everybody was like, "What the heck?" Well,
Yeah, including
here's
me.
your heck. Like this is what it's for. So, and then two, like uh, if you wanted to do say video and photo, I can rip that lens off and throw it onto my other Canon R camera
Yeah.
and rip with it as well and just have everything I need, everything I want.
Well, so here's the crazy part is I don't know how that camera's not going to come down in price for 4 or 5 years, I don't think, unless something crazy happens in the tech in the space. Can you
No.
see it coming down in price anytime soon?
No. Like
Yeah.
they don't need to, right? At 8 grand.
Well, US, so it's over 10. It's about 11
Yeah,
Canadian.
yeah. Sorry. The only thing I'm kind of thinking is uh Nikon Oh man, I can't remember what they did. They updated their video stuff. So, and it sort of sounded like essentially they put that red tech into one of their stills
Ooh.
cameras, which is like huge. So if they drive that down, and I could see something like this eventually. Again,
Yeah.
how much is it going to come down? I don't think it'll come down that much. And actually, which probably segues to like other stuff. So there was the R1 that came out
Okay.
for
I don't know
photographers.
too much about that. Maybe tell me about that one.
Probably the biggest disappointment in cameras all year.
What is
So
going on? I'm so frustrated with Canon right now because Sony's kicking their butt.
it's a
Brand names
good
that I've never
camera.
even
Like,
heard of are kicking their butt.
yeah, it's a good camera. So B&H here again. So it's 6.3 uh there. So whatever that is, Canadian works out for us Canadian folks. But like spec wise, when you like get into it and when you really compare it to an R3, kind of like, well, what am I what am I getting
Yeah.
out of it? And it's really hard to say. Like I don't think I would buy it. I guess it's honestly, will it be better? Sure, probably. But I think it's a pretty small market that would go from the R3 to the R1. But I don't know. Maybe I'm clueless. Maybe I don't know. Um, their AI autofocus they put out with this camera,
Hmm.
impressive as hell. Though those are the
Okay.
ones like where you can select the sport. So you could select like basketball and it'll
Yeah.
literally just follow the players who have the ball and stuff, and it does the autofocus for you, which is
That sounds
mind
cool.
boggling. And it seems to work extraordinarily well. But they
But
also,
guys like you and me, we don't shoot sports. I shoot people and then occasionally just for fun, like scenery.
yeah. So let's go to something fun. At the same time, pretty much, they released the R5 Mark II. Uh, some similar specs. The autofocus stuff is in it because, like, let's be real, that's just a software update. I feel like if they really wanted to be nice, they could give that to me in my EOS R. Canon. Hey, you're just throwing thoughts
Yeah,
out there. Um,
I'm sure they will.
yeah. Uh, but there are some like just slight differences in this camera. I think sort of the biggest thing is that it shoots essentially like a pre-shot thing. So if you go into like the pre-shot mode, um, so like sports people and wildlife photographers, I think would use this a lot. But when you go into the pre-shot mode, when you half click for your focus, it's in pre-shot. And when you full click, it'll take 15 frames before that click.
Ooh,
So like I said, really good for wildlife and sports,
wildlife. Yep.
right? Um, that's sort of the big thing for me. Now here's the funny part. You mentioned us again. Realistically, if I was to go out and buy a brand new R camera today, which one do you think it would be?
Hmm. You would get that R5C that you can switch between stills and video.
Nah,
I think you would
close
get
though.
that one.
I'd get the original R5.
Oh,
So
why the
right
original
now,
over the C?
uh, I really don't want to do much video stuff anymore, not personally, anyways, right? Like it's
Fair
fine at
enough.
work.
Yeah.
That's what work is for. Deal with videos there. But the original EOS R5 is it's 3 grand at B&H right now. So quite a
Canadian?
bit cheaper. Uh, no, that'd be American. I don't know
Okay,
what
so
it
it'd be
is
like
Canadian.
45 or something like that.
Yeah. Um, I should actually bring up like Don's and actually look at it. But anyways, it's just for the cost and what you're getting. Do I need the AI autofocus? No.
No.
The R5 Mark II shoots quite a bit faster and specifically faster in like its write speed.
Hmm.
So I think don't quote me on this, but I think like when they break it down to like the milliseconds of shots, like the R5 Mark II was shooting at like 5 or 6 milliseconds. And essentially, I think what that just allows you to do is shoot more bursts at once. So it can write faster to your card. and you'll get more shots out of it. And I think the original EOS R shoots like 14 milliseconds, which
Hmm.
means it'll just kill your buffer essentially before it can, just stop sooner, which again, for me,
You know what I
not a
don't
super big
want?
deal.
More extra shots to delete.
Yeah.
I
Well,
just
but
want an
again,
image that
though,
looks good.
yeah. And that's the thing. Your R1, your R3, your R5, all of them are going to look great.
Yeah.
Um, the
You know what else
R,
still looks great? My 1D. It looks amazing.
I think you would be shocked at the way these things are going, though, too. Yeah, this is another big difference. So the EOS uh, R5 Mark II also has a BSI stack CMOS sensor, where
Okay.
the original one, I believe, is just a CMOS sensor. It's not the
Those
BSI
stack
stack.
sensors are sweet.
Yeah. I believe the R1 and R3 are also, yeah, BSI stacked in the R1.
That
What's the R3?
C400's three stacked sensor. It's triple stacked. It's got
Uh,
three base ISOs, which is
yeah, it's shooting three
crazy.
base ISO. Is 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 that right? I feel like we talked about that and I actually got it wrong.
The C400, I think it's got three base ISOs because apparently low light is its huge thing, which is a huge step up from the C200 because I don't like shooting. So I find the sweet spot with the C200 is 400 ISO. And if you're at 800, you're introducing too much noise. So
Yeah,
you have to light everything. Like it's not a events camera. Like you would never want to go shoot a wedding with it.
yeah. What I think I got wrong was what a stack sensor actually does. Like I
Oh,
think it
did I
does
get that
help.
wrong then? I might have.
Yeah, I don't think it's like the base ISO and it's shooting at those three. I don't think it's doing that to take out noise, but I think what it does is it's speeding up the camera to take noise or to
You
get
have
rid
an
of noise.
article on it there?
Yeah, I'm bringing it up here, just sort of looking at it. It's honestly, I almost have to like link to this. It's pretty in depth. But essentially, like, so I think what it does is it helps with that millisecond speed. So when, again, let's use sports as an example, but you're taking photos of a baseball at a professional game and they're throwing the ball 100 miles an hour. When you take a picture of that on a regular mirrorless sensor, the ball's going to look like a football.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so when they can speed all of that up, which is what the stack sensor does, because I, again, don't quote me, what I'm kind of assuming is it's almost like taking photos over top of each other. So then it can speed
Okay.
up that transfer and it helps with that speed and it'll get
It
rid of
helps with
things
the
like that
rolling
as well.
shutter. It's got a faster
Moire,
readout. It actually helps with the focus. For some reason, it's supposed to help with dynamic range. It's signal to
again, I
noise
think,
ratio. It does help with the noise at
yeah.
particular higher
But I
ISOs.
think all of that is because of the speed that it can read out.
Yeah. Okay. And they're apparently smaller size. That doesn't make sense, but
Yeah.
maybe.
Well,
And
that's
then the
that's probably
boost.
like,
Okay. They help with slow motion, burst shooting. Okay, yeah, so it does everything. It helps with more stuff. It's apparently not how I'd pictured it. I pictured it as three different sensors, but they're just stacking them for maybe it's like hooking up more processors to your computer, maybe it's like
yeah.
that.
In your defense, I feel like that's how I described it, and I was just wrong. And
That's
and
just
we
how.
and we did
Why
that
would they
six
call it
months ago,
stacked?
so
Yeah,
everybody's been confused. We've had 50 people confused for the last
yeah.
6 months.
I'm still confused over it. I need to do okay. Okay. Next episode, we're gonna do a deep dive into the stacked sensor and actually know what we're talking about. How about that?
Yeah, sure. I like it.
Because right
Um,
now I'm just going off of what it sounds like it does.
yeah, yeah. Going back to this camera talk though, and actually I believe GoPro and Osmo released some new stuff as well, but everything this just feels like
Yeah.
the year of the GoPro, like, and even Canon was very unremarkable and
Not
almost
that
like,
C400. It's looking pretty sweet if you ask me.
well, for photography, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
Uh,
right though. The DJI action camera, have you seen that?
yeah,
It looks exactly like the one that I have that's like 5 years old. So I don't know. I'm not sure the reason to upgrade. I haven't seen it.
more bells and whistles, more stuff you can do on the app.
But I don't know.
Yeah, still
Ruth
take
just uses
pictures.
it for a vlogging camera. So it's like she just hits record
Yeah,
and then so this was actually an interesting thing that happened, Emery. Uh Watching one of my videos like that I was making, she's just like, "How come your videos look so good?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Because we're just watching this one that I'm making for this electrical contractor right now." And she's just like, "How come every shot just looks so good?" And it was like, well, you know all those numbers that you always say you don't care about and you just want to hit record? Those numbers matter. All of that stuff matters.
that was like one of my biggest pain points in when I actually realized. So now this is too long of a story, but that's okay. I went to film school because I didn't have to take a math class. I could take logic instead of math. And it was a big reason. And then I went through film school and we took all this stuff that was likely math, but I didn't pay attention
That's
to it because I didn't care. And then when I got out of film school and you're like 10 years down the road or something, you're like, how come all my stuff sucks? And then you're like Googling, how come my stuff sucks? And then you come up, they're like, oh, this number and this number. And if you do this, you get this number. I'm like, son of a, how did I
it's
get
all
conned into
math.
this math?
So true. It's so true. But yeah, so we'll see if she wants to because I was like, well, I can teach you how if you want to. And then I did show a basic shot and was like, okay, this is how it looks on the camera. This is the first step that I do in Resolve. This is what I do in Premiere, and
Oh,
kind of
nice.
went through all the steps and saw it at the end. And so there was a difference, but it's like, you see that light that's a different color, that's like a little warmer, that's hitting the back of their head, but it's not hitting their nose, that's wrapping around their shirt, but it's not all over their face. It's like that stuff makes a difference.
Yeah. I'm going to wrap it up, Nick. We've talked about a lot of things.
Yeah.
We've been gone so long. There's a ton of things we could talk about. So just a few quick hits here. Have you heard about the $75 million zombie movie that was shot in iPhone?
No.
Yeah, apparently it's a thing. Um,
That sounds like we should save that one for the next episode because we can go
nah,
into some detail with that. That sounds interesting.
yeah, it's from what's his name here? Danny Boyle. So he did like 28 days later. It sounds like it's maybe 28 years later is the movie. You can Google it, check it out. But yeah, their A camera. They used other cameras, but their A camera was iPhone. So, which is
Wow.
mind-boggling in itself. I'm pretty sure. I don't think they used it uh, like just picking up an iPhone. I'm pretty sure they probably had like the Black Magic app or something on it to get more of those pro features out of the
Probably
phone.
some lens type adapter stuff on
But
it.
they
Yeah.
specifically did talk about lens adapters as well on it. So a rig that they used on it. But yeah,
How
that
did they get their ProRes off of there? I'll tell you that. Have you ever shot in ProRes on your iPhone?
I have not because I only have
So
an
you shoot in
iPhone mini.
ProRes and then you just go, okay, I'm going to airdrop that to my computer. And then an hour later, it says, sorry, there was a problem with your airdrop or whatever. So I don't even shoot in ProRes
I
anymore
would
because
be
it's
willing to bet there's some sort of attachment and they were probably capturing straight to a hard drive.
they could have done that too. Yeah.
Um, but
Or they actually hooked up a cable to their
yeah,
phone. But then, yeah, then you'd have to take it off set and then you'd have to have multiple phones, which I guess is possible
it's
too.
super easy to do, cheap, right?
Yeah.
The other thing too, I think I've read that one of the bigger reasons they did it. So it's a zombie movie, call it like an action movie, but like what fits better in small spaces and when you want to do it. So
Yeah.
uh, want to run and gun. just everything about it is probably good. So this is the way we're going.
Like camera assistants are putting apps on the phone and
Yeah.
stuff, and
A,
just
a $75 million zombie movie on iPhone. So it's the way we're going.
wow.
The last one, this one's going to take some time if I can actually
Oh,
get into it.
the zombie movie was all the zombies walking around with their phones. Was that
Yeah.
the movie?
It's just people in real life. Oh man, that's too funny. Anyways, this
I see it everywhere now.
oh
Everywhere. I kid you not. It's everywhere.
yeah,
It's an
it
epidemic out
really is.
there.
I've had problems getting into stores. I was telling you about that, like trying to get into a store and people just sitting on their phones outside the door doing whatever while you're like waiting, like, are you going in or not? And they just like clueless.
It's not just young people,
Absolutely not.
though. I saw a guy in his 60s that was walking,
Yep.
like watching videos on their phone while they're
It's
walking. What's going
absolutely
on?
everyone. Yeah. It's weird. I'm listening to another Cal Newport book, the Slow Productivity. Not quite as good as his other ones, but like, man, people need some Cal Newport in their life and to get out of tech sometimes. Anyways, last article I want to bring up because I feel like this needs to be a movie. So, an Alaska island. Do you know what? I'm kind of making light of this too, but this is actually a pretty serious thing. But uh, an Alaska island is having problems with a rat. So this island
Okay.
hasn't seen rat in years. Um, the rats, I think they would follow like the ships that go up there and then they'd get onto the island. But the problem with the rats is they're an invasive species. So once they're there,
Yep.
they can sort of take over. And I, I, I don't know much about Alaska, but I imagine it's pretty fragile. But essentially, what's happening is the entire island up there, they're not sure whether there's a rat. There's been a rumor that there's a rat. So everybody is looking for this rat and trying to get rid of it and trying to bait it. Um, but again, I just feel like that is movie ready. Like it needs to be a movie. And I
Yeah.
even think like
Is there a rat on
a
the
good
island?
drama about it, right? Like, it's kind of funny. Like, was that a rat? And like someone's like a rat, and then you're going to like the town council meetings or whatever, and everybody's like scheming how to get rid of it and how the whole community bonds together, which actually is kind of nice considering we just talked about
Yeah.
how everybody's on their phones, not bonding to anybody to get rid of this. And honestly, too, even going through again, it's a pretty serious problem for them up there. Sounds funny, but still a very serious problem. And the anxiety, these emotions, the everything that these residents are probably going through. It feels movie ready to me.
Yeah. And one of the guys in the meetings, he gets heated. He calls one of the other guys a rat, which is the worst thing that you can call somebody. And then everybody's super
Yeah.
offended.
Yeah, but like, and even too, like, so the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services are involved with this as well. Like, so it's all just that escalation. It all feels like a thing.
Oh, there we go. I think I got to
Yeah,
switch cameras. I think my
that's
iPhone
okay.
died.
One last thing before we go, bit of show and tell. We used to do this thing called the shelf of shame. I got one for
Yep.
you today. You ready for it, Nick? Yeah.
Do you?
I
Okay.
might have
Let's
shown
see.
this before too. I don't know, but
Whoa. Is that you're just shamed that you bought that?
I, man, I thought an L bracket was going to be a good idea.
But that's so you can shoot vertical,
Yeah.
right?
So
Start making
you put,
TikToks.
no, not at all, but kind of. So the idea is you put your camera on here. It's got the clips here for your tripod, so you can just it'll go on your tripod. And then if you want to take
Yeah.
a portrait shot, it also has it down here as well. Um, I thought it was going to be useful. I pretty much never use it. Sort of two big flaws with it. When it's on, that bottom is solid, which means I can't change my battery. I actually have to take it off to change my battery. Useless. This end
Yeah.
is also solid. When you get ones that are like super expensive, like really right stuff kind of things, they'll have cutouts here so your LCD screen can flip out and around and move. Um, yeah, I regret buying this thing, and
Hmm.
I am going to try to pawn it off on someone.
Well, good news is you're only out $15 or whatever that thing
I think it
costs.
was
So
like 25 or something. But
$25.
that's the other thing. I think like the really right stuff ones are like 200 or 300 bucks.
You know what? It must be because I've got a crap one
Yeah.
too. But
Ooh, there's that other
it's
product now that goes like around the lens and then it just pivots on the lens. I don't know if you've seen that.
oh, interesting.
I might consider one of those too. That,
Wouldn't work for my camera's too
yeah, like
heavy.
the problem with that too is that it makes it like uh weirdly bottom heavy, right? Like because if you never take it off your camera, it adds like that much space because they need the space for you to pivot up here. And then
But then you'd have to. I'd need to see a picture of it because I'm thinking that how would you change lenses? It seems like there's a lot of other problems you're going to get
no,
introduced
the
with this.
lenses can change around it because it still attaches to your uh screw at the bottom.
Oh, okay. Well, that might
Yeah.
work then.
It's a neat thing. Um, so maybe someday I was gonna try to find it fast here, but not having luck. Anyways,
Yeah,
yeah,
save it for
I think
next one.
that's it. Should we call it a
Yeah,
day?
let's wrap her
Cool.
up.
Anything you want to bestow on the people?
Um,
I love the look on your face. You're just like, ooh, it's my moment to shine.
so some things, maybe this is an interesting one. Some things I don't know if you always want to know. So I've got this charger for my drone, but it tells you how many cycles the batteries had. Have you ever seen a charger that has that?
No,
Yeah, I'd never seen one either. But so right now it's at like 21 cycles. But is that information that I need running in my head right now? Is this too much
that
information?
is
Is this stealing from something else?
that is it's kind of useful though, right? Like it gives you an idea of the age or the abuse your battery's going through. Like so hypothetically when you try to sell it, right? That's a selling point for you as well. Oh, this thing's only got 10 hours on it. Um, but then
Yeah.
I also feel like that number is super low and it just makes me sad that you probably spent so much money on it to use it so little. I please don't ask me about anything I've bought in the time I've spent on it. So there's
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
I go. That's a good thought. I like it. Cool.
All right.
And leaving everybody on that high note, getting philosophical with Nick Lamb.
Have a good night, everybody.
See you next time.